Joining me now, Paul Morrow, Fox News contributor, former NYPD inspector, and Mark Eiglarsh, criminal defense attorney. Paul, let's start with you. Watching Penny's interrogation, you feel bad, right? And it's why everyone watching, if you're ever asked to go into a room with police and you've been involved in anything approaching a violent situation, you just can't speak until you're represented by counsel. But he's like, I didn't do anything wrong. I just tried to save people.
Yeah, so the cops here did their jobs. You know, look, you have a dead person. You're going to have to look into this. I mean, just to play devil's advocate, what if Daniel Penny had said something crazy, incriminating, like I felt like killing somebody that day? You have to do the interviews. That said, they asked open-ended questions. They gave Daniel Penny every opportunity to tell his story, and he does such a good job in that interview describing why he did what he did, that I almost wonder if, you know, the question of whether he'll take the stand is now moot, because he really lays out. He felt threatened. Women and children were on that train. He felt he had to act. And he mentions that Neely was still struggling. And so that goes to this negligent and reckless mindset that's required for the charges that he's hit with. So I think he did a very good job. And remember something else. The cops didn't arrest him that day. They gave it to the DA. He doesn't get arrested for 10 days later until the protests start, and then, of course, City Hall buckled.
Yeah, Mark, considering that he gave willingly, voluntarily gave his statement, it is a little odd that it took that long to charge him if they believed they had a good case. The police have to cross their T's and dot their I's here, as Paul said. But what's your take, given what you've seen thus far in this case?
Well, normally I don't always share your outrage, Laura. Tonight I do. I think this is disgraceful. I think if you watch this video, as I did several times, he lays out a perfect case of defending others. He reasonably feared imminent harm to passengers. Other passengers felt the same thing. This guy with a history of mental illness made it very clear that violence was going to take place at any given moment. He did what a hero does. He jumped in to save others. Now, in doing so, a tragic accident occurred. He's responsible, apparently, for the death of this man, but never intended on doing it, wasn't criminally negligent, wasn't reckless in any way. They should never have charged him.
Well, I don't always share your point of view either, Mark, but I adore you. So I love your analysis. It's awesome. So, Paul, let's get to the story, I think, of individuals in New York. With this as the backdrop, and we'll see how this plays out. I think people, as they go into the underground and they can't afford car service or Ubers all the time, they have to go. Working people have to use the subway. And you're in a situation like this, it's very tricky, because now people feel like if you step in and something goes awry, it's kind of like what they did with the police. If you move too fast, something goes awry, you could be in jail for the rest of your life. So what does that do to that dynamic, just on a human level?
So Daniel Penny, realistically here, was forced to step up against a very flawed system that nobody seems to be interested in fixing, that Alvin Bragg is very much a part of. And the results of that are exactly what you're talking about. People on the subway, when a crazy gets on, it's threatening, and it happens all day, every day, stare at their phones, look at their feet, and just say, please pass me by. And nobody wants to get involved. And the repercussions are everywhere. Nobody wants to take the subway who can avoid it, but most people can't afford it. Now Kathy Hochul is putting in congestion pricing to force people back into the subway. And by the way, this is why New York is no longer the city that never sleeps, because nobody wants to take the subway after 10 o'clock at night to go back to the boroughs where they live, where it's cheaper, etc. And so all the bars, restaurants, they're all closing. This is no longer the 24-hour city that it was, and these are the reasons.
Mark, what's your gut here on how this is going to come out in the end? I mean, you can't really predict these things, but what's your gut, seeing so many cases in your career?
Not guilty. And the worst part, having been in the criminal arena for 32 years, I'm seeing a trend now. This case would never have been brought 20, 30 years ago. Now there's a trend in prosecutions for people who, you know, if there's enough political pressure, we're just going to prosecute someone, even when they're well-intended, even when they're doing the right thing. And I don't like it at all.
No, it's like mob justice. I mean, the mob demands it, and just do it. Paul and Mark, always thank you.
Yep.
Now, this